Hi there, welcome to another video. Today's video is about activity 1.10, writing a literary analysis paragraph. This analysis is going to be about Lamb to the Slaughter, the story by Roald Dahl that we read in activities 1.8 and 1.9, and it is dependent upon you having completed the Check Your Understanding at the end of 1.9. So if you have not completed those two activities or written something either in your digital text or your written paper text for 1.9 Check Your Understanding, I need you to go ahead and stop the video, go back and complete those activities, and then return after you're finished. All right, so if you're still here or if you're returning, we are ready to get started. Before we go back and look at your statements from 1.9's Check Your Understanding, let's take a look at 1.10 and what it's going to ask us to do. So this is a writing activity. You're not going to read a new story. You're going to use the story that we've read before. And let's look at the learning targets. In this activity, the goal here is to develop and strengthen writing. So you know how to do some basic writing, but we're going to develop it, make it more sophisticated, and help you become a stronger writer. I am still developing and strengthening my writing. I think that the more we do, the stronger we become. And it's not something that we necessarily ever become perfect at. We all know great writers like Stephen King. Even he edits, revises, and changes his work before it is on the shelf at Barnes & Noble. All right, so the two steps that we're going to use today to develop and strengthen your writing are planning and revising. These are steps that often get skipped, even by people like me. So when you're up against a deadline, you're feeling the pressure of having to turn it in. Oftentimes, we just want to get it done, hit submit, and we don't go back and reread our writing, or we don't take the time to actually plan out what we're going to write before we get started. And then we become overwhelmed because we're looking at a blank piece of paper or a blank screen and we don't know how to begin. So we're going to plan and revise some written text, your text, in order to address what is most significant for a significant purpose. So we're going to look at what was most important in this story to achieve a particular purpose for the reader. In addition, we're going to make sure we're focusing in our writing on what is most important for our purpose for writing. So our purpose for writing is going to be to explain. So look at the next objective, the next learning target. We're going to write explanatory texts that analyze and communicate complex ideas clearly and accurately. So we are going to explain how an author achieves an effect in his writing by analyzing it, breaking it down into maybe the literary techniques or the elements like character, plot, and then what the effect was of that. We need to communicate it clearly so that the reader understands it, as well as accurately. So we are going to need to have our texts nearby. So either your paper text or you can scroll back in your digital text. You will need to have it so that you can refer to the story as you write. So looking at the preview, in this activity, you will plan, draft, and revise. You will need to do all three steps. So right now, thinking about that, think about how you need to plan your time to complete this activity so that it'll be ready to turn it in by Sunday's midnight deadline. Okay, so if you need to plan during one particular time and then draft during another, and then set it aside and come back to it the next day or later that day so that you can revise with fresh eyes, that is one way to do that. So part of planning is making sure you have set aside the time to complete it so that you will not only have time to write it and turn it in, but write it, revise it, and turn it in. Okay, so what you're doing that for is a literary analysis paragraph. You're going to create complete sentences. So this is something I'm going to be looking for. We talked about independent and dependent clauses. I am going to grade this paragraph I do want to see that you've used complete sentences. And then you're going to add transition words. We haven't really talked much about transition words. I'm not going to be grading for that, but I am hoping to see them in your writing. It'll give me an idea of what you do know. And then adding context for direct quotations. So if you use direct quotations and for the evidence that you pull from the text, you're going to need to add something called context or commentary. And we'll talk about what that is. I find that that is the piece that is missing from most ninth grade writing. So this is something we're going to work on. This is the beginning. So I don't expect you to be perfect at it right now, but we're going to practice it. And hopefully very soon it will become second nature, the explanation through context. All right, so our learning strategies, where you're going to add information, that's part of the revision process. You're going to outline, that's part of the planning process. And then think, pair, share is something that's kind of gone to the wayside during our remote learning, but I'm hoping we'll be able to do some sharing in the live session. And I also want you to think about this idea that when you write and you give it to me to read, you are sharing your ideas with me. And so we are sharing. It just is not in an immediate sense as it would be in the classroom. And hopefully we'll be able to get to that in our live session. All right, so what we're going to talk about right now is using a single paragraph outline. So again, you're writing a paragraph. This is not a long essay. We are building up to the embedded assessment, which will be an essay. And we will talk later about how we stretch analysis out from one paragraph to multiple paragraphs. Right now, we're going to look at how to outline and make a plan for our paragraph. Now, in your digital textbook, you may be missing some information. And so I have added that information in this box, and I want to show you how to get to it. It might be in your written text. In my written text on page, I believe it's page 58. Nope, it's on page 60. On page 60, under using a single paragraph outline, there is some blue text on the lines that tells me what needs to go in the paragraph, how my outline needs to be done. That information is not here on the digital site, at least in my teacher version. So hopefully in your version it is there. If not, I'm going to show you how to see what's on your screen in front of you. Over here in the black navigation bar on the left, at the top is where you see your table of contents. Somewhere on there, you should see an icon that looks like this one that's highlighted in blue. So when I hover over it, it changes to blue. It looks kind of like an old Rolodex card. You probably wouldn't even know what that is. But it's like an address contact box with a little silhouette of a person. When I hover over it, it says class copy. So when I click on that, in my teacher version, I can see your student books, but in yours, what you probably see is your book, and then beneath that or above that is what's called the class copy. I'm in the class copy right now. It has 9 English, and then this one happens to say honors because this is my honors class, but then the Roman numeral 1, which is for first semester, and then calendar 04. So the numbers at the end, that's your class period. So as long as you're looking at that, you click on that and it will take you to the class copy, which has my information that I have added. So let's look at what this is, and then we'll walk through, I'll walk through a little example for you. It says, use the following single paragraph outline to plan a paragraph about how Roald Dahl conveys humor in Lamb to the Slaughter. So we've read the story. I do want to remind you that even if you watched the film, we're talking about the written text here, and you're going to need to pull evidence from the written text, so not the film. It is a little bit funny when she's acting strangely, right? And when the detectives are not finding what they're looking for, or when, at the end they're sitting around this meal, and it is darkly humorous. So you are going to write a paragraph about that humor. So in the analytical paragraph, in this box, I have added a link here. So this top one, this top phrase that says analytical writing slideshow, it is a clickable link that will take you to a Google slideshow that I have created to help walk you through the different elements and parts of the analytical paragraph. Later on, we'll stretch it out into an essay, so you'll see there are some references to essay in here. But this is going to help you understand that your paragraph begins real broad, like at the top of an hourglass. It narrows into very narrow details and focus, and then it gets broad again so that you're ending with a universal statement that can make it relevant to the outside world. So starting broad, not very specific, no evidence yet, focusing in, providing very specific evidence, broadening out, relating it to the larger world. All right, so that's the clickable link at the beginning there, analytical writing slideshow. What comes next is, or what comes first in your paragraph is where it says TS. So that's your topic sentence or a thesis, right? It is the main idea for what's coming in your paragraph. What are you going to talk about? The next thing is evidence, so a statement that provides evidence from the text. After that comes that piece that I said might be new to you as a ninth grader, context, an explanation of how that evidence relates to the topic sentence. So this is something we call commentary as well. So really, you're telling me, what does that evidence have to do with what you're explaining to me? So in your topic sentence, you said it was funny because, and now you're telling me they're sitting around eating a leg of lamb. Well, explain to me what makes that funny? Why does that prove your point? So you've got to use commentary. So just like, in investigative detective work, one piece of evidence does not prove someone is a criminal. So you've got to have lots of pieces of evidence. So more than one piece of evidence is always better. So I would say 2 or more pieces of evidence in an analytical paragraph. So you'll want more evidence and more context. So each time you use evidence, you need to explain how that relates to the topic sentence. You can't just throw in random stuff from the text to try to, pad the paragraph. It has to be meaningful and it has to come with some context. All right, at the end, and perhaps the hardest part of an analytical paragraph is that concluding statement. We always think of conclusions as kind of a thank you or a goodbye or the end. Really, in this concluding statement, and I'm going to add this in here, this is a statement that relates or connects, I'm going to say, your topic to the reader or the outside world. And I'm going to give you kind of an example of that in just a second. Okay, so these are the outline steps. I know that as ninth graders, you are smart and you are capable students. However, even the best writers often, almost always, begin with an outline. Even if they free write first, often they come back and then they organize those ideas into an outline. So you must do this box. You must engage in the outlining process. It is not optional to get credit for this assignment. If you want to do it in a Google Doc, that is acceptable. Okay, so let's do an example together using a different short story. So I'm going to walk through this outline process using the Red Fox Fur Coat short story. So I'm going to start with a topic sentence. And so I'm thinking about the Red Fox Fur Coat, and I want to talk about how character development happens and how we can see that character development through the telling details, because that's what we were looking for in that story, was the telling details that revealed the transformation. All right, so in an outline, you don't have to write in complete sentences. So I'm just going to write kind of the basics of what I just said. Author uses telling details to reveal character development. So that's essentially going to be my topic sentence. Now notice that it's broad, right? I have not given any evidence yet. So this topic sentence shouldn't have the details yet. It's broad. So now this is going to be my evidence number one. Now I need detail. Okay, so now I went back to the story and I made some notes about the details that I wanted to use. So I'm going to start, because we're talking about character development, we have to talk about how the character was before and then how the character was after. So I'm going to put, again, I don't have to write in complete sentences in an outline. So before, she was humble. And when she went to look at the coat in the window, I'm going to put that she was inspired by fur coat, and that she would look at the coat through the window at night because she didn't want anyone to see her. And I'm going to put in parentheses here that I think that's insecurity or shyness. That's my interpretation. So that's one thing. Now, because this is a before and after thing, I'm going to put the after. After, she was going to parties where she dressed up and wore scarlet nail polish and lipstick. Okay, and I'm going to put in parentheses just to remind myself for when I start drafting that this is bold and brave. So not insecure. So that's going to be, those are the pieces of evidence that I want to use. Now, I know that I said you had to have more than one piece of evidence. I actually feel like I have two separate pieces here because I have a before and an after. And so it might be enough. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my context or commentary. This is where I look back at my topic sentence and I see I am trying to prove that these telling details reveal character development. I have this before evidence and this after evidence, and I have to connect all these things together. So here I might want to write a complete sentence because I don't want to lose my thought process. So I'm going to write something like by showing the characters' insecurities and shyness at the beginning of the story, say the reader can see how I'm going to put humble in quotes, humble bank clerk has grown and changed because she was inspired by the fur coat. Okay. Now, I haven't said anything about the after yet. The telling details of scarlet nails and lips show that she is no longer shy or insecure, but rather brave and I'm going to say actually bold and outgoing, because the party shows that she's outgoing. So I wrote those in complete sentences. I wanted to get my thoughts on the paper so that I wouldn't forget them, but you don't have to. That doesn't have to be in a complete sentence. All right, now I really do believe I have two pieces of evidence and two separate pieces of commentary that links everything back to the topic sentence. I'm going to need a closing statement. This is a hard part, but I want to think universally. So what does this have to do with a reader? What might the message be that I want the reader to take away from either this story or what I've told them about the story? So I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about women, I'm thinking about young people, men and women, who are feeling like they're not special. And I'm thinking that as a reader, maybe I can see that one special piece of clothing can help me come out of my shell or something like that. So I'm going to use a closing statement that says that the reader understands how being inspired can help overcome insecurity. So I don't have to write that in a complete sentence, but I think that that's good. And this is my closing statement. I'm going to take that 3 out of there. I'm going to put closing statement because that's what that is. I know that I only have a 1 and a 2 there, but it's really 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 pieces of evidence, 2 pieces of context. So I think I'm good there. So here I have a plan. I have a plan to write a paragraph. Now you have to make your plan. Your plan is about a different story. It's about lamb to the slaughter. So Mary, she waits for her husband to come home from work. Her husband gives her bad news. Mary snaps. Mary kills her husband, acts very strangely, calls the police. The detectives come, can't find any evidence or the murder weapon, and we get to see all of this unfold. It is darkly humorous, but at the same time, very suspenseful, waiting for Mary to get caught, and then you know how it ends. So what I want you to do is pause the video because I'm only going to do one video for this one because I know last time it posted like a million zillion videos. So I know this feels like a long video. You can stop it, go right, and then come back. You can pause, go right, and come back. But do this number 1, the single paragraph outline, and then come back for the rest of the lesson. All right, for those of you that are back, let me just apologize for my dog's behavior and noisiness. I'm just going to keep rolling because I can't do much about that. They are a little bit wound up, as you can tell. All right, let's look at the vocabulary. That's the next thing we have here. The word revise. We try not to know the word revise. We try. But the fact is revision is an important part of the writing process. We do need to do it. It helps us become better. So to revise is to rework or reorganize a piece of writing to improve its logic and flow. Anything that improves is good in my opinion. The term comes to English from the Latin root revisere, which means to look at again. We don't read our writing before we turn it in. A lot of us don't. We need to stop, take the time to read it, make sure it says what we want it to say. In this instant world of text messages and emails, we often just, shoot off replies very quickly. Same thing with our writing. We have to turn it in. I wrote it. I'm turning it in. Done. We need to stop. We need to let it sit and rest and, let it all come together in our minds on the paper and then come back to it. So revising happens when you complete a piece of writing and then look at it again. So we have to do that. We have to do the revision. Now, they have given you a paragraph here. It says, use what you've learned about effective sentences to revise the following paragraph. Add, so we said we were going to do some adding when we did the revision, more specific details with quotations from the text and combine sentences. Add sentence variety. So sentence variety really means you use some simple sentences, some complex or compound sentences, some long, some short. Sometimes we have commas and additional information in there. Really, it's like music. If your entire song is just the same rhythm over and over and over and over and over and over, it's why you get tired of Baby Shark, right? It's the same thing over and over. We add variety, like in your music, they have a chorus and they have a melody and they have a bridge and then there's the underlying beat. And sometimes you got to wait for the beat because it's not there yet. So there's lots of rhythm and variety. So writing is the same way. Good writing is like good music. It contains variety, okay? So you're going to incorporate a variety of transitions to improve the flow. We'll take a look at that when we look. And then you're going to write the revised paragraph in the box that's here. Okay. In Lamb to the Slaughter, Dahl conveys humor by transforming dinner to murder weapon and then back to dinner. Right? This is our topic sentence, right? So I am going to underline that as our topic sentence. So now we know the evidence that comes has to link back to that. Mary desperately wants to serve her husband dinner. But darling, you must eat. Mary decides to serve dinner in a different way. She smashes the back of his head with a frozen leg of lamb. Mary serves the lamb again. The detectives are searching for the murder weapon, probably right under our very noses. It was funny in a shocking way when Mary used the frozen lamb as a murder weapon. It's even funnier when Dahl employs dramatic irony and has Mary serve the lamb again as the detective's dinner. All right. Now, it's not a perfect paragraph. Now that I have read it, I feel like there's some stuff missing. Like I need to fix it up. There's a lot of short sentences that are very choppy in here. I can combine some of them. I can revise some of them. So let's take a look at it. We're going to revise this paragraph. We're going to do this one together, and then I'm going to have you do the assess and reflect. I'm going to have you do this one too. No two revisions are going to look the same. So what I work through as part of this one might be different than what you do. All right, so let's look at it. In Lamb to the Slaughter, Dahl conveys humor by transforming dinner to murder weapon and then back to dinner. That is funny. So she goes to get it because she's going to serve it to him because he's alive. She kills him with it, but then she ends up cooking it and serving it anyway in an effort to hide it. Okay. I think there's some information missing here because here implies a timeline. First it's dinner, then it's murder weapon, then it's dinner. We need to understand that Mary wants to serve her husband dinner at the beginning of the story. So I will probably add a phrase, a dependent clause at the beginning of this and say, at the beginning of the story or in the beginning, Mary desperately wants to serve her husband dinner. And she does, right? She keeps saying. I'm also going to say, so I might say, at the beginning of the story, Mary desperately wants to serve her husband dinner, comma, she says, but darling, you must eat. I'm probably going to say repeatedly, right? As Mary, so now there's huge information missing here, right? Mary decides to serve dinner in a different way. So understanding why Mary does that, and then next she smashes the back of his head with a frozen leg of lamb, all of a sudden she says, but darling, you must eat, and then she's killing him? I don't understand. So we need information here. So we need context, right? This is where we put in the context. That information is great, but it doesn't help me understand why she hits him with the leg of lamb. So now I need to say, I might just leave Mary decides to serve dinner in a different way right there. I kind of like that sentence, but I'm going to add something here, right? So in her frustration, after Mary finds the frozen leg of lamb that she's going to cook for dinner, actually, that doesn't work either. I have to say something about how he gave her bad news, don't I? So, when Patrick says he's not going to eat and instead gives Mary bad news, right? Comma, she smashes the back of his head with the frozen leg of lamb. So see, I needed to add that context there. So he doesn't want to eat and she's trying to force him to eat and he doesn't want to eat. And so when instead of eating, he gives her bad news, here is what Mary does. So hopefully you can see how I'm working through this paragraph to add context. I may also need to add information, right? So I needed to add that this one thing happened at the beginning. I can't leave my quotes unattended. They need a speaker tag. So, but darling, you must eat needs to come with a she said or Mary said. Down here, probably right under our very noses, that can't sit by itself. So I'm going to connect it to the piece that comes before it. The detectives are searching for the murder weapon, comma, and do not realize it is, I might take the probably out and say something like right under their very noses. Or I might say, the detectives are searching for the murder weapon And while they are eating it, say, probably right under our very noses. So hopefully you can see how that works. All right. I'm going to let you do the assess and reflect piece on your own. So at this point, you need to finish revising this paragraph that I tried to walk you through, and then come down here and do the assess and reflect. Same process as you did with the paragraph you revised earlier in this activity, this one right here. Use what you've learned about effective sentences and paragraphs and make revisions so that this simple, unelaborated paragraph becomes an effective analytical paragraph. So look at this paragraph right here. In Lamb to the Slaughter, Dahl conveys dramatic irony through Mar's dialogue, and that should say Mary. That's a typo. See, we have to go back and read. Even SpringBoard makes mistakes. Let's start over. In Lamb to the Slaughter, oh, I wonder if it's there on purpose. They're tricky, aren't they? In Lamb to the Slaughter, Dahl conveys dramatic irony through Mary's dialogue with the detectives. Dramatic irony is when the reader knows something that at least one of the characters does not. Mary offers the detectives dinner. It'd be a favor to me if you'd eat it up. Mary knows the lamb is the murder weapon. Dahl's readers know the lamb is the murder weapon. Detective Noonan doesn't know the lamb is the murder weapon. See, lots of opportunities for revision here. The detectives eat the lamb, probably right under our very noses. So there are a lot of opportunities for revision in this paragraph, lots of short, choppy sentences that can be improved upon. I have no doubt you can write it better. So in this box right here, I do want you to go back and revise this paragraph. Now, the piece that is not here that you are going to do that you needed to have your check your understanding from 1.9 is that there is an assignment in the Google Classroom that asks you to use that sentence to write an analytical paragraph following the planning step, the drafting, and then going back and revising. So in that Google Doc, you will put your check your understanding sentence, you will create an outline, and then you will draft and revise the paragraph and submit it. So take care of this by putting your revisions in there, your outline, and then go to the Google Classroom and complete the analytical paragraph and turn it in. All right, I hope you enjoyed not only the story, but looking at how to break down the writing into segments, how to use analysis in order to get a deeper understanding of why authors write the way that they do, and how we can reflect on evidence to help our reader understand why we've included particular quotes or paraphrased particular details and information from the text. All right, I'm going to scroll right back up to our learning targets and take a look at them. Hopefully by the time you finish the practice and the assess and reflect and then write your own, you will feel like you have developed a little bit in your writing, strengthened your writing through the planning and revision process, and addressed what is specifically important and significant for your specific purpose. You will have written explanatory texts that analyze and communicate complex ideas clearly and accurately. So I hope that you feel like we've met the targets today. Please take care of this assignment. Don't put it off till the weekend. Once it's done, it'll feel like you've got that off your shoulder and can relax and enjoy some time to yourself. All right, I will see you next time for 1.11. Thank you.